Kalimera, kalispera, kalinikta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. Midweek musings with one of your favorite. Let's rock and roll. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad. Welcome all, and to those listening on replay, appreciate it, and those on our audio platform also, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. Thinking this might be a regular hour, so get used to it, and I'll be sure to let you know in advance. Mr. Tom Canton, welcome to Squad Central again. At ease.
Hello.
How are you?
Tired, very tired, but yeah, not bad.
Okay, good report. Real quick before we get stuck into your top 5 musings for this week, in 30 seconds, Thomas Tuchel appointed England manager. Uproar from some, and others really don't care. Where do you stand?
I don't care that he's German. It's like the bottom line. But I think of the available managers, he was probably the best out there that England probably could have got. Champions League winner, Bundesliga winner, Liga winner, multiple trophies. And yeah, I'm excited by it. I can't wait to see what England do under him. And, he's got a history of being quite a short-term coach at clubs. Maybe the international setup of kind of sparse interaction with players will actually suit him more. So, yeah, I'm excited by it.
Interesting. Okay, I have a bit of an issue with it, which I'll tell the squaddies about later, but I just think that if players have to have some type of nationalistic qualification to play for the team, I think the managers should as well. It goes against all of the them versus us. That's what international football is all about, the rivalry. And I totally understand and have empathy for England fans who don't like this appointment. But we complain about international football. So enough of that. Real football is back, and midweek musings got me thinking about what subject could I throw at Tom this week. And I wanted to examine a little bit more of our bench, especially considering that so many Arsenal fans have hit the panic button with the injuries. Started off with Odegaard in the September break now, I think it is. Saka, of course, Martinelli, we're not quite sure of. So this brings me to the bench, Tom, which in order to win a Premier League title proven by Manchester City, you have to have a good bench. So let's start with the most exciting things that are going on this season. Is it time to play NWANERI and Skelly over experience? And I'll double it to you. Is it time to lean on them the same way Emery did lean on Saka, giving him his opportunity when he was manager of Arsenal?
I think that this is a good time at this moment, potentially, to have Ethan NWANERI in particular. I think coming into the team, I think this weekend is a good opportunity to start him in the team. Obviously, Odegaard being out, there's question marks about a number of players. Havertz missed the international break with a knee issue. Saka's obviously a bit of a question mark with him or from Arteta on Friday about that. So, yeah, I think that there are lots of reasons to use NWANERI, who has looked very sharp and positive and sprightly and exciting in the short amount of time that we've seen him. Wier Skelly is trickier, to get into those games because we've got a lot of options at left back. Zinchenko's expected to return soon. Timber and Ben White, of course, coming back into the fold will mean that we've got more options in defensive areas as well. Kivior's still available. Tomiyasu's a question mark. We don't know what's going on with him really too much. So it might be trickier for Wier Skelly, but you've got the game against Preston coming up soon. So I imagine both of them will get starts in that game. But yeah, it is time to lean on these players a little bit more and give them some more minutes as well.
Do you think that they're ready the same way Saka was, real quick in 30 seconds? Do you feel that they've got that maturity level? Because it seems to me, having seen them on the tour as well, that they're primed and ready, the new Arsenal way.
Osaka obviously broke into the side in the European scene. We had the Europa
Mm.
League, so it was much easier to give him minutes there, whereas it's trickier to give these two. There's no doubt that they've got loads of potential and talent at the same time as Saka at that period as well. You know, we didn't know what his ceiling was. We don't know what the ceiling of these two are. We just know that they've got loads of potential. So it's hard to commit to anything too much. But I see a lot of the confidence in NWANERI that I saw in Saka at a very similar age.
Yeah. And obviously we saw, Wier Skelly was fearless going up against Haaland. And when you see those types of things, you know that they're totally ready. Okay, here's another one for you, which I find fascinating right now. Does Mikel trust Sterling more than Jesus now? Has the Jesus love train come to the station and stopped? And to cover the NWANERI conversation too, um, do you think that they deserve an opportunity more so than these experienced players? But let's start with the trust. Does Mikel trust these two, but does he trust Sterling more than Jesus?
The honest answer is I don't know yet. In our last game, of course, both of them started against Southampton. They were brought off, and Arsenal went on to win the game without them on the field. So I guess we might see in the coming weeks if there is any lag from the international break with the likes of Martinelli or with Saka. Will he choose Jesus? Will he choose Sterling? Who does he pick first coming off the bench in certain situations? I think that will give us the answer to those questions. But I still have a lot of faith in both of those players, especially Sterling. Of course, we've not seen as much of him as we have seen of Jesus. Sterling looks the more informed player right now of the two. I liked his performance against Bolton. I liked his performance against Southampton. I want to see more. I want to see goals and assists, of course, on a more regular occasion. But Jesus is definitely the one out of the two I think that's lacking confidence. That's got bigger question marks over him, and for many fans probably whose time is running out at Arsenal as
Mhm.
well. So I think he's got some decisions to make, and we'll learn more about where he sees them in the next few games.
Tom, do you think Mikel trusts the youngsters more so now? And maybe a personal question for you. Would you rather see a NWANERI be given the opportunity over a Sterling at this point?
I don't think he trusts the youth more. I just think he believes he's got better youth options available than he has done in the past,
Mm.
and that these current options obviously have developed to a level that perhaps last season against PSV, which everyone called a dead rubber, that he didn't use either of Walters or Wanerian, that he just felt that he's more comfortable using these players having developed to this point in their careers at this stage. So I don't think it's necessarily like that he's got more trust or more faith. I just think he just believes in these youngsters more so than some of the previous iterations of youngsters that have come through. And whether or not NWANERI gets an option over, say, Sterling in games, I
Mhm.
don't think so just quite yet. Sterling they've brought in. He's a very experienced figure, multiple Premier League winning player, and so I think that if it was in a moment where you had to lean on one over the other for, say, a wide position in particular, I think you'd see Arteta still lean towards Sterling more than NWANERI.
Interesting. Okay, we'll see. We'll see what happens, and especially with injuries and not quite knowing exactly what's going on. Bench players are so important in this running for the title. And if there's a bench player who I probably should apologize to profusely, it's Kivior. And when you look at what's happened injury-wise, Timber's in and out, Zinchenko injured so much, Tomiyasu just seems a broken player, and I know we reinvested in him, but it's just not looking good with another setback. And Kivior was on the docket to be sold this summer, Tom, but it's becoming more apparent how important it was to keep him. I called him not so long ago, early on. I said he seems like a donkey kind of player, and that was exceptionally out of order. And I eat crow quite happily on this show, and I feel like he is important in this side. Talk to me about Kivior. I'm apologizing to him, and I think that he brings value when it comes off the bench. When he comes off the bench.
Yeah, I think that he does. I think Arteta, you talk about trust with players. I think Arteta does trust Kivior to an extent to be a finisher. for us in games. We talk about this terminology of a finisher, a player that comes off the bench and helps us end fixtures and can either help hold us out, can help lock down players, or of course, subsidize some of the players that need some rest, need some minutes and rotation. He trusts him to play in numerous positions, be that left-sided centre-half, right-sided centre-half, or of course left-back where he can play as well. So yeah, I think that there are certainly reasons to be very, appreciative of what Kivior brings to the table. This is a guy, as I use always, that was trusted despite Tomiyasu and Zinchenko being available to start at Manchester City last season and helped us keep a clean sheet at the Etihad that season. So he's a very decent player. I don't think he's ever going to be like an Arsenal starter above Gabriel or Calafiori, for instance. I don't think he's of that standard, but he's certainly, when you think of the depth that Arsenal have had in recent years, like Rob Holding, for instance, he's certainly several calibers above that in terms of quality.
Yeah. I feel like it's funny when I spoke to someone at the club here in the US, and they talked about how Kivior found it hard when after the Bayern Munich game, and it was really difficult period for him because it did feel like Mikel lost trust. And he's ruthless, right? You have one bad performance, you could be on the bench. You have a good performance, you could be on the bench. But they were really hoping that he would bounce back because he's very well liked at the club. Has always done the right thing, said the right things, and is a hard worker. So on that note, I'm really happy for him that he's staying. He's finding a place. Doesn't have to be the starter superstar, but brings value to the team overall. And I was happy to see that. Now, it's funny you mentioned starters, but the finishers, and Kivior being one of those finishers. Do you think that Mikel has identified his starters versus finishers? Of course, with Odegaard out, it opens up doors. It seems like Saka injury is going to be okay. There's always the Martinelli Trossard argument. What's your take on the starters versus finishers, Tom?
He definitely has kind of in his mind, I think, players that he views as key figures that he can call upon from the bench. I think Leandro Trossard's a really interesting profile when it comes to this debate, because I think, as we saw from his celebration against Villa, he sees himself as a start. He starts in that game, he comes off the bench in that game, he scores. But then he'll start a game and won't necessarily deliver, in the same way. And then obviously we're back then to square one about where we are with Trossard. I think that Trossard is better coming off the bench, but that's not to say that he cannot deliver when he starts games for us as well. And I think when you've got a player like Martinelli, who is definitely more of a starting figure in the team than a finisher for me, I think that dynamic works with Trossard in the state that he's in, at the moment. I think, Jesus and Sterling, I wouldn't describe them as finishers. I would just say that they are depth options of quality, in the teams. I think they're players that, if they're on form, start for their respective clubs, but have not been on form for a very, very long time. I wouldn't describe either a Jurriën Timber or Ben White as finishers. They're both starters, but one of them is going to have to be something of a finisher soon because of the way in which both Timber and White have been performing to such a high standard, although both of them, of course, Timber can play at left back as well. Mikel Moreno, I think, will grow into a starter, but is right now coming off the bench. So, yeah, I think that it's a difficult dynamic to generate. You can't always promise players minutes and time. And if Arsenal sign players, especially at right wing, the reason we haven't signed a right winger is because no one really wants to be a finisher behind Bukayo Saka that's of the requisite quality for us to bring in. So that creates challenges in the market that we've got to try and overcome and got to try and find. But that in itself is a very challenging prospect that we haven't yet quite cracked.
And also, I think it's a position that we've wanted to be in for so long, isn't it? That you have look, we've removed players that we fell in love with, and Arsenal. It's been a long time since they've sold players that fans actually love, and the club really love too. And to see players of Marino's ilk come in, Calafiori, to have that abundance of options, especially in the back line, is a place that we've really wanted to be. They just all have to stay fit, of course, which isn't easy throughout a competitive season, players playing so many more games. So with that said, is the bench title race ready, Tom?
Yes. And it has been, because obviously we've competed in the last two title races. It's more ready than it's been over those previous two seasons because we've been able to add more quality to the team. But, when a team finishes 2 points off the top, as we did last season, and, has a record goal-scoring campaign and wins more games than it's ever won before, of course you look at the squad and say it's ready. Can it be better? Absolutely. There's always room for improvement. There's always ways in which you can improve things. But, the problem we've got right now is that we have a ridiculous number of injury concerns. 9 players were either out of the international break from the senior squad or suffered issues while on international duty in the case of Saka and Martinelli. So that's a huge number of your key squad that is missing. And so any team's bench is going to suffer considerably because of that. So when those players return to action, that's obviously going to be a very positive thing for us. And we hope that Ødegaard will be back in November. We hope that Saka and Martinelli will be fine. We hope that Havertz and Partey are okay. We hope that Tomiyasu, if he has suffered anything, which is yet to be confirmed, is also not too serious. So, I think our depth is very good. But our injury record this season has been probably the worst it's ever been during Arteta's tenure. So that's another challenge that we obviously have to deal with.
Okay, a few more minutes here with Tom. I'm going to stay afterwards to wrap up a few things, so don't go anywhere. At eSquaddies, sorry, I lost my manners at the beginning of the show, and more of you joining now later on will get these times right. Tom, I heard you talking on your show, if Saka is fit to go against Bournemouth, you were asking your listeners what would they do. I would rest Saka for this game, and I would actually also maybe rest him in the Champions League game as well. What was your take on that? I may have dipped out when you were talking about your perspective on the Saka thing.
Yeah, I think that for anyone that would like to rest Saka for this game, I absolutely wouldn't blame them for doing so. I don't think that there is any logical argument against the idea, really, of resting Saka, besides maybe the one of just saying if the doctors think that he's ready, then he's ready. But at the same time, I just think that you've got the most important player in your team, and if he's got a hamstring issue and had a muscular problem that meant he couldn't play against Finland, however many 6 days later, I just can't. I can't 100% commit to being fully comfortable with him starting that game because I don't want to risk him ahead of the game against Liverpool. So, my lineup for this game, it might include Martinelli. It depends upon, again, what he's like. But away at Bournemouth, I don't see any issue in starting, with Jesus or Sterling on the right-hand side, Trossard on the left, NWANERI as the 10. I have no qualms with that whatsoever. If that's what's necessary, because we need to have the depth to be able to deal with these teams. And I think that's something that we can choose to do.
Brilliant stuff. Those are your 5 midweek musings with Tom this week. We talked about NWANERI and Wier Skelly and the Saka syndrome. Does Mikel trust Sterling more than Jesus? Do Skelly and NWANERI in particular deserve to start ahead of some of these experienced players? Kivior, does he get enough respect? We'll be lucky that it worked out the way it did with the summer transfer window. Has Mikel identified his starters versus his finishers? And is our bench Premier League title race ready? Give us your comments too in the YouTube section. Let Tom know, because he does check it. And as you know, he is one of the greatest fact checkers on the planet. You don't want to go up against him unless you're ready. Tom, where can everyone find you? I mean, they know where to find you, but what's coming up for you at the old Gooner Talk TV?
As always, live bright and early, 8 a.m. UK time on TGT. Some written work, as always, at Football London. There's a factor piece went up just now, talking in depth about the ticket situation at the club as well. So that's probably worth a bit of a read. Thank you to everyone that's tuned in, and make sure you're dropping a like on Sophie's video, because she absolutely deserves it, as always.
Well, thank you, Mr. Canton. And we hopefully will see you next week. And you take care. And I'll be listening at midnight my time tonight to the new show. Cheers, mate. Take care.
See you later.
Bye. That's Tom Canton joining us for his midweek musings. And as I said, a lot of you tuning in now. And I'm thinking the timing of the shows will be Mondays, either 7 p.m. or 9:45 p.m. after a game. Wednesdays, 5 or 6 p.m. and a Friday show as well. And then somewhere in between, the Arsenal Women's show sandwiched as well. Thank you to Tom for joining. Always a huge supporter of the show. And thank you, squaddies, for joining. A couple of things I want to talk about real quick before I let you go. Okay, very important. I wanted to just circle back on the England situation and the the fact that some fans are being called X or Y just because they want an England manager. Can we just be nice? Does it matter if someone who was born in England is a huge patriot and wants an Englishman as a manager? That's okay, you know. And I think it is very different to having Capello and Sven. The rivalry with England and Germany is huge. It's massive. Look how upset and broken we were when George Graham went and joined Tottenham. That was a terrible time to be an Arsenal fan. You're talking about a man who helped rebuild the club. Now, you fast forward all these years, and there's the respect is back for George, and he's revered and he's looked at as a legend. But at the time, there were a lot of Arsenal fans who were exceptionally upset about that. So let these fans go through their process. Thomas Tuchel is definitely someone who's adapted to life in England. He loves life in England, and I'm sure he's going to do a great job. But at the same time, I think that there's always one rule for the players, and then there's another rule for everybody else. And I just think that at the end of the day, everyone should be able to have their opinion about this one. And if you feel staunch about being an England fan and not wanting a German manager, I totally understand that as well. If he improves the team, fine, great. It would be hilarious if England won the World Cup with a German manager. I would find that absolutely hilarious. Unbelievable stuff. Okay, the other thing too is we did a show on Monday talking about Jonas, and it's happened. He is out, and I think that it's the right decision. We talked about it with, well, Demian and Albert talked about it on our Arsenal Women's show as well. They did their top five. Albert was talking about 5 ways that maybe he can keep his job. Demian was of the 5 ways of definitely what's indicative of why he should lose his job. And you should go back and listen to that in our video section. It's a really great show and still topical in terms of some of the dialogue and the conversation. On Monday, we were asking if Jonas deserved the same patience as Mikel Arteta. But our take was that, unlike Mikel Arteta, he inherited a healthy, abundant, amazingly talented squad in women's football with world-class players. But it became a little bit too much, I think, for the players. That didn't seem to be any of the same harmony on the pitch, maybe in the dressing room. He had lost them. It didn't seem like they were playing for him, even though they were still playing for themselves and for each other as a team. There was just something off with Jonas. And then the fans spoke out and they were very vocal. And we saw this go up on the wall right there outside the Emirates. And in the end, the club made the decision. A quote from Edu as well, thanking Jonas for the cup competitions. And he was compared as well to Eric Ten Hag. Is he just a cup winning manager? Can he deliver you the big trophy? When you go this amount of points behind Manchester City and Chelsea at this early stage in the WSL, there really aren't enough games to catch up. And the other thing too is that the quality of the league is, competitive again, but it's more than likely that City and Chelsea won't lose 1 or more games. And so it was inevitable that this would happen. We're going to do a show where we're going to talk about who we'd like to see next. There's a big argument for a lot of managers, and it'll be interesting to see who you guys would like to see manage Arsenal football women's team coming up. There's here the argument with men and women, I don't want to hear that because women's football hasn't been like that in years and years and years. Casey Stoney for me is the one that jumps out right away, available, a little bit of history there, has done a lot. I mean, it's a shame that this didn't happen prior to Chelsea signing Sonia Bonpastor, because for me, that would have been the key, the European experience, Pedigree as a player, pedigree as a manager as well, would have been a superb signing. But Chelsea nabbed her first because they want the Champions League. That's the trophy they want. So Jonas is out. The Arsenal women's team moves on to the next chapter. Let's see how that rolls out. Hopefully it will reinvigorate them and also the fans. 60,000 plus at the Emirates. Last season, 45 this season. I think the fans were losing a little bit of excitement for the team as well, pertaining mostly to the style of football that they were playing. Okay. The other thing I have on the docket for tonight, we have a new prize with football prizes. It's Jack Wilshere and Rosicky. And there's Perez and Bergkamp on deck too. It's up for grabs now at Football Prizes. Please go get your ticket. It's only $3.95 and it is well worth it. We've had 3 winners so far, sorry. And it is $3.95 and you could find yourself with some of the best memorabilia on the planet when it comes to Arsenal. I'll get rid of that. You can see the price there. There's 349 tickets. It ends on Monday the 21st at 7:30 p.m. Little Jack Wilshere. Look, that's a little throwback there, is it? Remember those days? As much as I love those players and I enjoyed watching them, we've come a long way since these days, haven't we? Still, it's a good piece to have. And there's no doubt about it. But I put this up too. Why so serious? The spine is still there. Believe in this team. And I believe that Mikel Arteta's had enough time during this international break to figure things out and have them ready to rock and roll for this next phase before the next international break, which is exceptionally annoying. Right. I hope you've enjoyed Midweek Musings. It's our new fast-paced short show. I'd love to sit and chat a little bit longer, but I also have some stuff I need to get done today. Apologies for not greeting you on the way in. That was exceptionally rude of me. Squaddies, remember to hit the like button on the way out if you haven't already. I hope that Keith has figured out how to hit that like button. Very well directed by you, Tammy. And thank you so much for joining. Let us know in the comments what you think about our subjects today. And we will respond to them. Why can't NWANERI and Wier Skelly be Saka? Does Mikel trust Sterling more than Jesus? Do we give players like Kivior enough respect? Has Mikel identified his starters versus finishers? And is the bench Premier League title race ready? Please do hit the like button on the way out. And look out on the community page and X for our next show. Share this show. It's a good little video or audio to listen to when you're doing a quick workout, driving around, putzing around in the garden or making a cup of tea. Appreciate you guys always. And don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. And until next time, squaddies, at ease, at ease. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.